Hey, and welcome. Thanks for joining this session. So today, yes, we're going to talk about automation of migration of PI to CPI. I hope you're doing well. So where are you guys coming from? I'm sitting here in Copenhagen, and it looks like spring, though maybe a little cold. But we're doing good here. So thanks for joining. Yeah, and if you have colleagues, you can also invite them to it. Hopefully there will be something interesting going on here. And let me just get the documentation recording also. New projects record. Cool. So let's get started. Hey, Dave. Almost long time no see. Glad you could join to see this migration thing. Cool. So yes, let's get started. Thanks for joining. And as always, if you have questions along the way, do put them into the chat or the Q&A session, and I'll try to cover those as we go along. The interesting thing here is obviously to get your input, and if you have questions, something that is of interest, do share so I can cover the things that you want to hear about and what is important to you. Cool. So yeah, migration. There's a number of things that is interesting in this perspective, and I think I'm just going to move here. This is why do you want, and this is the things we want to cover today. Why do you want to do your migration? What you should prepare in advance. How the FigUp tool can help you automate this process, and then how to get started with the tool, your migration project, etc. Hi, Thomas. Thanks for joining. So these are the things we want to cover, and we'll start just with FigUp, who we are and what's going on. So we started out creating a tool to automate SAP integrations and testing. Then we found out we needed to know a lot about all the objects that were going on in the PI system. We found we might as well just do versioning of these objects and make it easier to govern things. Then we found out we could transport these capabilities also, and then CPI came and we found that was also possible. And then a year ago we also said, well, CPI is, or PI to CPI cloud integration is the way you would be going. I will, in this webinar, be using probably mostly CPI, but we obviously mean cloud integration, the capability of the integration suite. So why do we want to migrate? I think this is actually a pretty interesting topic that you want to figure out what's actually the big reason for this. And I think the main one is it's about simplifying the way you're delivering SAP integration. So cloud integration have a lot of capabilities that make it easier for you to manage the integration. It is obviously the future platform for doing integration. It's more modern. It's much better for dealing with cloud integration, where in the PI world or era, you had the option to actually make modifications to receiving systems. In the cloud, you are out of luck. You have to hope that the systems have the APIs that you want, or you can persuade the partner to add those APIs. iPaaS, and in some aspects it's also give you a lower cost of operations and make it more transparent which artifacts you are going to use. There are still a few things that is not as good on a cloud integration, and yeah, I guess we do have the survey also here. That's of interesting, and this is also why you're considering migrating to cloud integrations. So please share your insights on these things. So I can use that. No. And I think that there is a few things here that could be improved. There's the governance part. I hope to be able to cover that today. There's some part about operations, exactly once and order handling, those kind of things. That is of interest. But overall, it provides a lot of value to, yeah. And I guess as you're saying here, it's probably the best platform if you are an SAP-centric business. At least if you're not SAP-centric, it still could be a useful product, but I think most customers would probably be using the SAP-centric approach for dealing with these things. So thanks for answering. So let's get started with the preparation and why do you want to prepare to your migration. And I think some of this is, you can obviously go through this and say, okay, this is just a technical exercise. There's really not much for us to do in this process. Let's see, you've got a question. I've been left. And this is, yeah, so it's not the technical. We need to get started with it. And this is, you want to, before you really do this and start migrating all your stuff, you need to have a robust way of dealing with this integration and have a vision about what your integration is going to look like in the next 10 years. Because once you've migrated, it kind of get stuck and it's difficult to do modifications because all the governance, testing, etc. is in place. I can obviously show you how to automate the testing, but there's still going to be a lot of things you would need to do in that process. So do yourself a favor, do take and understand what are your architecture going to look like in the next 5 years. I think a good way to start this is to use the ICM methodology, where you can go through a lot of these things and understand what are the different integration use cases we have, how does it work out, etc. Coming from an SAP-centric place, integration suite could be the right thing, but obviously there's other competitors in the market that makes sense to evaluate. You want to also go through the S/4HANA migration and understand how that's going to affect your roadmap, and then you can move to cloud integration. And as we talked about, you need to design this good practice and process to handle your integration. Just move. And one of the key areas here is that it should be easy to deliver integration, run, manage, operated. And this is about having to transport the integration, be able to test, be able to share code, document, and have a good process in place. So I would definitely recommend looking at how you can do that before. And I do think that this is a place where the FIGAF tool can also be helpful. I hope I'll be able to show you some of the ideas about how the FIGAF tool can work, simplify the way you're delivering integration in the long run. So, So, and I guess that's also part of the ICM. Go through and create a small scale migration. Understand how this would work, try to operate the integration, see how it works, and if you would run into problems, what are they and how would you actually resolve this if you need to migrate your 5,000 integrations or 1,000 integrations. how does it scale, etc., latency, all these kind of things that you need to put into it. And yeah, this is an investigation on what it will require to work. We do have a number of resources, and there's a link here that pops up, hopefully, that would give you an idea on so there's a number of different resources here. There's a guide on how to migrate. There's a link here on your screen. You can click that, and then you can see this this section. And I think we'll also send you this afterwards. Here we have a migration guide that shows you some of the different ideas and aspects of getting started with the migration. We also have a project estimator, and one of the things we try to put into that one is how your migration is going to be. How much are you going to do one-to-one migration, and how much are you going to redesign integration? Because you will never, and I guess we'll get to that later, just have a one-to-one migration of all your integration content. It's a one click and then you're good to go. There is going to be a lot of or there are going to be something that you as architect developers need to take care of and be sure that you create integrations the right way. But this guides this calculator try to give you an idea on how you can actually estimate these things. So I recommend that you check that out and try to run some simulations on how this would work. Also see how well it will function if the FIGAF tool can improve your productivity with 50 or 20%, and if it would be worth your effort. Good. Now we come to the migration, and I think now we have the next poll. This is about when do you actually think you would start your next migration. So while we take that, here's the history of our tool. And the way we're dealing with this is, we talked with a few customers along the way, and we had a PI to PI, PI to PO migrations. Did the poll show up? Yes, it's queued. And so, yes. So yeah, when you're planning to migrate, please share that. And they asked, can we also do PI to CPI migration, because you have the artifact. It's like, yeah, it's going to be a little hard. It's two different models. I've refined and got some ideas about what would actually be possible. And we participated in this hack to build and said, well, let's try these 2 weeks and see if we can actually build a good prototype for it. So that was really a good experience. We won that. Our prototype idea worked. But obviously creating a prototype is not a final product. And after that, we did have to go back and we had to make sure it worked with more legacy code that you would normally have in your SAP integration. So we went in and have been enhancing it. We got the first client to use it in September, and this was a 7.1 client that wanted to use it. And there we obviously found some areas that we needed to improve on. And I think so most of you, 57% says that you would be looking for a migration after 12 months. So, but there's still some here is looking for it, and I guess that makes a lot of sense. But even though you have a timeline that says it's a long time, the preparation time, understanding how you would create your SAP integration makes a lot of sense. Cool. So, and why do we want to automate the migration? This is about creating a consistent experience. This is about speeding up the development process, spending the money and resources on things that actually matter. We do have a migration tool to automate Seaburger B2B add-on migrations, and that would probably also be something that could be of interest in a PI to CPI migration. But one of the key aspects here is simply it just saves a lot of time and means that all your migrations is done the same way, and it makes it a lot easier to do governance and change management on that. It makes the migrations a lot easier to manage because we have thought of the full process. It enables you to test the migration, and I think this is one of the key areas. And then it frees up your developer resources so they can focus on development and not all the labor-intensive thing. And obviously, they will still have a lot of work to do getting these things to work and handling, so they will not be unemployed. So no worries. And once the migration is done, there will definitely also be a lot more integrations going on. So no worries. And then the next question is obviously, okay, so we got this tool. Can we migrate everything? And the answer is no. There will be a lot of cases or some cases that is not supported, where it does not make sense, or where it's a lot better to redesign your integration. Our goal is that you should be able to migrate like 70% of the integration, and that really would speed up the delivery of this process. So the migration tool is built on the FIGAF integration suite, and this gives us a lot of nice capabilities. It gives us the option so it's a standalone application. It deploys in Cloud Foundry or on your local systems, whatever you have. It's a pretty easy to install application. It then connects to the different systems. You have your PI CPI system. It fetches all data or all integrations, and then you can continuously look at the different scenarios that you have. Once you do that, you have an option to do record replay of integrations. You can take this data and you can then transport it, or transport your integration. We'll see that in action. We have a Git repository that all your artifacts is sent to, and then we have the migration capabilities. And this is then a little more how it works. It has 7 steps. Seems easy, right? So we start off with taking all the data from your PI systems that's related to this integration. Then we create a BPMN model. We convert all the needed artifacts. So this is message mapping, user function libraries, all these things into the PI format, save it. Then we take the communication channels, and by using an XSLT, you would then convert these into a CPI platform block, I think it's called. And then we can upload it to CPI. We can create test cases, and we can then migrate and run them on the CPI test, and then we can run it into production. And some screenshots of this. But I guess you're probably interested. Does this actually work, and can we see it in practice? So I showed it earlier today to a team and said, well, nice. But you had some complicated scenarios in this, and we had not expected that all of those work. So hopefully this works just as smoothly. Okay, cool. So we start out here. We have ICO. This is a HTTP sender to ERP system, and we have a condition on to send it to a specific receiver. We have one of our mappings has a container ID or a operational parameter that we have set up. And the other one is a message split that takes a payload and then have a multi-mapping that goes into this. So the way the tool works is we will go here to the migration tab. And here we would then select this ICO we have created. on the right system. So here we select it. We go into the agent and select the agent that we have. We'll put it into this demo 2 P12 demo. No. Find a better name for your iFlow because that would make sense. But we now can go in and we can check this artifact, and here we can see the same data. We can see it contains 2 or 3 communication channels, and we have then added these XSLTs, and the XSLTs then handles the conversion between the PI and the CPI conversions. And the way you can look at these is like the one we have here. This is the SOAP one, I think. It takes a communication channel object from the PI, and then you can simply set up all the different attributes that it needs. Burp. And then you can set up the external properties, and are there any notifications that needed to be added to the user. And you then see those in this section down here. If there is any problems with the migration, you have this zip file. You can send it to us, and then we would have a better way of helping you run this migration and see what is wrong with the artifact, or what are we missing here. We can press a preview, and this will then give us a list of the iFlow we're expecting to create. How does it look? What is the different components involved in it? And this is okay. We just click migrate. And now we can actually go to the iFlow we just created. And we can see all of this has been created automatically as we have been preparing this. So let me just go into edit mode. So one of the comments that we got was we needed to specify the HTTP endpoint, and what we have added here, it is just using a generated URL, which is really not valid. We have an FTP data here we have set up with these data. We can see it fetches all of this as external properties. We have, as you saw, it had a message mapping with external properties. They have then been moved here to this exchange property, and that means if I open the message mapping, if I find the right spot, so here I think this icon number, then it have simply added this parameter to our message mapping without we having to do anything with it. So it's just a simple way to add the capabilities, and you do not need to make any modifications to it. And this is then just a simple Groovy scripts that we have added that picks up the data. And here we have a function library. Edit script. So here, this is a function library. It has been migrated into this system. The idea is then you will go through this this flow, update the thing that is expected. What would you need from this, and then you can actually add all of the updates. But the main thing would be if you're using the container objects, then our adapter specific message attribute, those would obviously be some of the limits of what is actually possible. So that was our mapping. We'll just say save, it's fine. And here in this route, we have added a processing that says if the order number or invoice number is different from null or 0, 1, it will route it through this way. And here we can then see we are adding the multi-mapping steps around it. All of this as a way that simplifies the multi-mapping processing. And we have a splitter that takes out the payload, and we have a filter. All of this without you having to do anything with this process. Cool. Any questions on this generation, what's possible, etc.? Yes, and otherwise, yeah, we'll take it afterwards. Okay. So now we just need to synchronize this. The reason we want to synchronize it is because we made a change in the iFlow, and we want to keep this iFlow and have it in the FIGAF system. And we're using that for a number of reasons. One is to be able to transport it, another and have the documentation process in place. The other is once we're testing it, we need this data to reflect what really exists in the system. Oh, did I deploy it? Just deploy it. Otherwise, our testing will be not really working out. So now our synchronization finished. That means we now have one iFlow here. And if we check the versions, we can see the different versions that we have created. We can compare these. We have a BPMN model comparison to show you where there is differences into it. So we added this message definition, but apparently that is not needed anymore in the latest once we have saved it. So this is really a useful tool if you do modifications or development in your CPI platform. You can see how two BPMN models are different, and this saves a lot of time, because if you look at it also have a diff to HTML. Here you would see some of the other challenges that looking at a BPMN model, it is really difficult to see what is going on. But this is really useful if you have Groovy code XSDs that is being changed and you want to have versioning up. Good. So now we have created a migration. We have made the manual modifications we needed to do. Check that it looked okay. Now we need to go and create a test case. So the way we will do that is we will go to our PI system. Here we have our PI system. We will select the same icon. And we can then say record messages. We'll create a test suite for the specific icon. And what would then happen is once we click here on record, it would then log onto this PI system, fetch the relevant communication channels, and then on these communication channels add either an SAP log module or our log module. And here, because I'm running on premise, we're using our log module. And now I have created 2 messages and 2 outgoing messages. And we want to take these payloads and create a test case from it. So all we need to do is just to click create test case. And then this will take these payloads we have. Just delete last one. We don't need that one. And here now we have a test case that runs on SAP PI. If we just want to make a modification just to show you that we actually have this, so could someone give me a random number that I can use here for a price of this item, number 12? So who is with the first random number in the chat? Oh, a difficult one. And Ravi will take yours also. So now we have made a modification on one of the inbound payloads to check that it works, and we can then see if it all works out successfully. So we have our test case. We can go here. We can take this. We just need to check the time. We could obviously have added specific data and renamed it. For now, we don't want to do that. We can then select where we want to add it. We will select the iFlow that we want to migrate the test case to. And we then see here we have this, it's 1.1 or 101. It is not deployed. Deploy. Start the deploy. Maybe that was because the synchronization finished before it was done. So press OK. And then we have actually migrated the test cases. So we have taken the PI test cases to show what it looked like there, migrated it to a CPI test case. And then let's go to our test cases here. So now we can see we just created a CPI test case for this scenario. And we can then specify we want to run it on a given system. And now it will complain, I need to get a license for it. And this is how you will then get licenses. So we're also just asking for the DevOps license. DevOps is used when you're doing transports of this objects. So that's the way we would be handling migration licenses, etc. So now we can specify, try again to run this integration. And we can go and we can see the testing results. So we can see here it is view result. We can see what the status of the message is processing in. It says here the iFlow is not started. I'm not sure what is going on. It just says started. So normally these would start fairly easy. Not sure, we have a problem here. It still says starting. And the problem with the tool is that is wait until you have actually started this this iFlow and run it. So we cannot really use that one. No worries, I did create an other iFlow, so we will just take that one and try to run it with that. So this was the, we will take the same ICO we had. Well, actually I just created the, just before here I had another demo where we did this, ran this the same migration, and here we can see the testing results. So we can view the results here, and we can see there was some differences. We can look in here to check the diff, and here we can see that on the inbound payload, we then changed the value here to 111. Obviously, I would love to have seen your values here, but since we cannot really get the iFlow to starting or to start, that will have to wait. iFlow deployed successfully, but it is still starting. Now it started. So let's see. I guess that's the fun thing about doing live test cases. So now we're getting an error, which I guess is good because we made some modifications so we can view our results. We can see we're getting some errors here. We can go easily. We can see that there's actually a diff up here. And we can see that the two values that you came with is in the original payload. And if we look at the other payload diffs here, we can see we get this input data here as one of the diff values. What we can actually do is right now we can compare it again, and we would expect this one to be green again because now this one also had a this course. We could easily ignore these things, so it should be red or green again. One of the things you can then do once you have gone through the test case and say, okay, now we have actually updated all of these scenarios to work, is you would go here, you would say, update the test case and mark as the testing result. And this is the way you would actually be using the tool going forward, because whenever you're making modifications, you would be adding new scenarios that you need to, or changes to the mappings that would then result in new outgoing payloads. And to make sure you cover all of this, you can just go here and say, okay, now update and say this is our expected result next time we run it. So now we have migrated an iFlow. We have tested everything is successful. And we are satisfied with our results. So next up is we will go back and say, okay, now we have made our change. Now we need to move it into a QA system and set it up there. And to do that, we will go to our PI system. Here we can see we have our versioned object. We can then assign to a ticket. We will write what we are working on, this scenario, who is in charge of it. And we will select the landscapes that we want to be using for this. We will connect it to a Jira ServiceNow incident. So we have some reason. The idea is that once you go back, you would then have access to all of these different tickets. And that means that you can look at an object in the FIGAF system, and then you can actually see, this is because we made the change over here, and this was the real business reason for this. So we just need to, attach all the dependent objects. Attach all dependent objects. So we got all the objects that's part of this transport. We can look up the test cases, the ones we created. And that means we can actually select we want to run it on our system. So now it will take this test case again, run it on our system as a way to document that in our transport, this is what we are wanting to do. And this will take a little while for it to process. No, it's successful already. So now we can see the results. It went pretty quickly. And if we look at the diffs here, we should then be able to see we are now getting this as our expected result. So it's really easy to update test cases, make sure they're always current, which I think is a big problem with integration testing. And now we can actually start our transport. We simply just click Start Transport. And then we have the option actually to configure this across the landscape. And we have here host names. We can go either globally on our landscape and say, okay, always replace this development to test on our test system, and thereby have a really simple way of handling these things. If we just want to make one small change here, we can set this to XML, and we press save. So now we have made a change to the configuration, the way it's going to be deployed in our QA system. We can send to approval. Normally, no developer should not have access to approve changes. I do, because it makes the demo a little easier. I can now prove would have the same capability to do comparison with the different objects. So I can check what are the configurations, or what are the configurations the developer would suggest needed to be modified in this case. Now I just say approve. Good work. Always give your developers some good feedback. You could also have rejected it, then you would get it back and they would need to figure out, well, what to fix with it. And now we will then upload the iFlow. We would run the configuration that we have set up. We would deploy it, and then we will document all the changes that have happened as a part of this into the FIGAF system, so we know who made the changes for which specific use cases. And obviously sometimes it can take a little while for it to synchronize. We have an option to roll back or import again if that is what we are looking for. So that's the transport process of us being able to transport this into the QA environment, handling all the transports here. And we can then, if we look at the system, we would then be able to see, okay, we have this artifact, it has a ticket, and this is the ticket number, and thereby going back to the full flow. If we want to do documentation, we also have another option here. We have a up here, we can say create scenario documentation, and then this will create a documentation of the specific scenario with all the changes that have happened as a part of this transport. So yeah, we got an overview of this. We got our BPM model. We got the connections we have a part of it. We have the test cases that should be, this is because it's the QA object. We have the flow, what it looks like. We have the configuration across the landscape on all the different artifacts we have here. And we have the resources that is needed on this system. So something that is quite useful, we have the same on the ticket. You can also export all the information from the ticket, upload to Jira as a way of documenting the changes that you have been up to. Any questions on the migration part? On the demo, different things you did not see, I can explain a little better. Otherwise, we will take them towards the end. So now I will go back to the slides. No more questions. So yes, this was the flow we created on iFlow. We have the XSLT, I think I showed you these, where you have an option to take these, make your own modifications. And this is really simple. It will take you like 5 minutes to make a modification on these things. And obviously you need to consider how to set it up and what's the important part of this. The way we're pricing this is 100 euros per ICO or receiver determination that you are migrating. And then this includes the migration, includes the testing, transport, the Git repository that I probably should also be showing you. That is also really something that speeds up the development. And depending on the number of ICOs you will be using, you can get 3 to 6 months use of the DevOps tool that I showed you here. Some of the things we do have on the roadmap is an overview page that will look at the full migration process and give you ideas and show what can be done for each iFlow. Is it being used? Have we done migrations? Is it migration not possible? Have you done manual migration? And is it transported into production? So this would look a little like we have here on the test cases, but obviously with some of these extra columns along the way in some format. But the idea is to make it a lot easier for you to understand your current migration process. We want to add support for Java mappings, XSLTs, to just show that we do have these things. Please, for Java mappings, I don't think it now. We will do the full Java mapping. I think that becomes something you need to do manually. We would have XSLT should be pretty simple, but in Java you will just get an empty shell like you do with if you have RFC lookups, etc. Maybe something about having logging, error handling built in, something where you can set up what are the systems involved in your migrations, and are there any specific things you want to see in the migrations. And then you have CSV and XML, CSV to XML conversion. That's probably also one of the things that is quite a useful thing in such a migration project. At the moment, we do not support adapter modules, CSV to XML and the other way around, adapter-specific attributes, B2B add-on, Seaburger, the different bridges. But obviously, these should be pretty simple to handle, at least the last ones, without you, with the tool, doing some of these steps a little more manual than would be ideal. But on the other hand, you're anyway saving a lot of time on these things using the tool. We do have the testing tool to support these two bridges, so it should be possible also to do migrations at some point in time. Why are we different than the SAP one? And I think, so obviously when I talk about the SAP one, it's the one where you in the message mapping or in an iFlow can go in and say, okay, I want to import the message mapping here to do these scenarios. Some of the things we do support is we do support function libraries. We do support RFC lookups. We do support parameters. We do support multi-mappings, and you get the full flow. So we have the Git repository for all the artifacts. There's the channels. There is testing. There's transport documentation. And then it's just about speeding up the process. And I think that if you go through the calculator, you'll probably see, okay, as just a small improvement of the effort and what we need would save a lot of money. But I think it's a fairly big improvement, a lot of these capabilities. I want you to get started as quickly as possible. So you can try the migration tool. And when you're trying the migration tool, if you perform migration, you get the migration tool for an extra 30 days. And if you perform a test case, you get an extra 30 days also of the migration tool. So yeah, the thing you just need to do is to send a screenshot to us, and then we will extend the license. There's a pop-up here that you can use to sign up for this. Otherwise, you can always go to the FIGAF site and find the migration tool and sign up there. If you buy the tool before 1st of May, we will provide 15 hours of additional consulting to help you get started with the tool. Installation, start with your migration, help you set it up, and help you on how you can actually improve your processes. So if you have any questions or comments, and you want to have this as a part of your talk with your team, understand how this tool fits into your process, do schedule a call with me. Go to figaf.com/book and sign up there, and then we can cover how your integration could be of use there, and how the tool can help you. What are the areas that you need to look more into, or that's more or less important for the migration projects. So that was all I wanted to cover in this session. So now it's time for Q&A. If you have questions, comments, do ask them. Otherwise, thanks for joining. Thanks for participating. I hope this has been helpful. And you could see some use cases where this makes sense in your integration scenario. So yes, any questions, comments?